So I would say the first thing to do, because people ask me that question a lot. Well, how do I know if I should stop dating and start healing? What are the indicators? So you and I have both said a couple of them so far, but just to repeat, you're not where you want to be in relationship. You're noticing patterns repeating themselves. You kind of feel like you're running on a hamster wheel. You tell yourself like, I just dated this person. They look different. They look different, but it's the same dynamic. Why do I keep attracting a narcissist? Why do I keep attracting somebody who's so wounded? Why do I keep attracting someone who's financially unstable? Right? There's many things. So what's really important and very helpful, and it is very helpful to do this with a coach, but you certainly can do it on your own, is to look back at your timeline of relationships. And sometimes I'll have people like sketch it out on paper, right? Like make a timeline, put all the relationships they've had, short ones, long ones, the longest one, the marriage or whatever, and then write down the themes that they see in that particular relationship. First, just focus on the one relationship and then look at it. And no doubt there will be themes along the way, and that's really helpful. That's great information for you. And then you can also see like, well, did all of that happen 20 years ago, or is it like my last breakup, which was last month? So also everybody knows themselves. So if you ask yourself, like, is it time to do some healing work? Do I need to do some healing work on myself? The answer is yes. Then there's no right answer, right? Go for it. So that's the first thing, just to really self-identify, out yourself as somebody who should do that. And just a little tiny story before we get into, and I'll say a few more things about exercises. But I'm going to be 60 this year, but I remember back in my 20s dating, and then I was looking for my partner, right? I was looking for my husband, at least subconsciously. I wouldn't tell that to anybody at the time, but I noticed I was having several relationships with people I really liked, that I really cared for. One that was a really old, like, childhood friend that I really loved and adored. And what I noticed is that I kept hurting them, people I really
Hmm.
cared about and loved, over and over again. And
Like
even at
sabotage.
that age, I didn't, yeah, well, yeah, sabotaging, yes, not maybe choosing correctly for myself. I mean, granted, I was in my 20s, but somewhere inside me, I knew, and I told myself, stop dating and start healing. So it actually began, however many years ago that was, 35 years ago. And I did, took my own advice, and I stopped completely. And I did that again later on in my life, in my 40s, when I was noticing patterns and I was like, I'm hurting myself. So I stopped and like had a 1 year period of celibacy that actually lasted 2 years. Just wanted to share that. And so, okay, so self-identify, notice, what's going on, pause. And you want to look at themes and where they came from in your life. And I think for a lot of people, they can see, like, I've been feeling abandoned. I keep getting left. I was abandoned as a child. I had this neglectful experience with a parent or whatever it was that happened. And then you also want to look at your mindset. You brought up lovable, love able, but lovable first, and notice, like, do you feel lovable? Is it something you feel about yourself? Do you know that one, your love, period, capital L. And two, do you feel like you're someone who's worthy of love? What are you telling yourself? Because your mind can tell you all kinds of things. And so we want to, in the come back to love approach, we actually do a four gates approach. So there's four aspects that we're looking at in terms of healing. And the first one is the emotional. The second one is the mind. What are you telling yourself? The repeated thoughts. And sometimes it takes mindfulness to notice what those thoughts are, because you're so used to telling yourself, I'm not good enough, that you stop noticing that you're telling yourself, I'm not good enough. And when you pause and slow down and just have the intention of hearing those thoughts more often, you will hear them more often. And then you'll recognize, oh, wow, I'm telling that to myself 10 times a day. And then okay, this is something that needs work, because whatever you tell yourself, the energy, the energetic and the energy of that thought is what you're living and bringing into the world. And like attracts like. So you tell yourself, I'm not lovable, I'm a shitty person, I'm bad at this, I'm not good enough. And then undoubtedly going to attract that energy to you. And then you're attracting someone who feels similarly. I'm not saying this happens 100% of the time, but it happens a lot because we bring to us what we need to heal, which is the good news and bad news. Yeah, so I'll just stick with those two because that's a lot to focus on.
Yeah. So, okay. So we've talked a lot about this idea of when is the right time, being able to establish that timeline, being able to look at your past history of relationships and getting a really good understanding of what the relationship looked like from the outside in, considering you're reflecting back, being able to look at habits and actually write them on a piece of paper to be able to see kind of like, oh, okay, I see a habit here. So that's one way of really first establishing the understanding of where you are in terms of being ready to date or ready to heal. Because if you are seeing that pattern of behavior, that's a huge, bell to say, like, all right, you got to heal from this because ultimately you're going to end up with the next one exactly like the one before and the one before.